Hello, Nico Liebenberg here. What a privilege it is to spend another meaningful 15 minutes with you. I would like us to consider a very important question today. How to be effective in an ever-changing environment or a constantly changing environment. I think it's very important to answer that question, especially where we are currently in man's history or the world's history in terms of changes happening. And I guess for most of us, those changes that are happening and the things as they are panning out and progressing currently would not have been chosen by you and I. Now, one of the things that we need to consider is, what does it mean to be effective? Or what does it mean to have an effective lifestyle? Now, I would like to explain to you effectivity within the context of habits, because the habits that we form, they usually make up what's called a lifestyle. And the lifestyle that we develop is either successful, effective, or it's ineffective. Now, we can have a kind of a mixture of habits. Some of them might be great, and they assist us to have a great quality or a high quality of life, and some of them might be not so great. Usually when I think about change and I think of the impact of change, I think that one of the paradigms that can explain change quite effectively is what I call the pain and pleasure paradigm. So when we still have more pleasure from something that we do, a habit that we live in, then chances are that we won't change that habit. But the moment that habit and what it gives us becomes more pain, even though that might just be 51% more pain and 49% pleasure, then it brings us to a place where change becomes possible. Now, when we think about a habit, it takes around about 28 to 36 days to form a new habit. And a habit constitutes of the following. It's knowledge. You need to gain the knowledge. You need to understand what you would like to implement, what you would like to do, new things that you would like to bring into your life. So knowledge is the first thing that we need to gain when we want to change habits or implement new habits. The second thing is actually a skill. We need to develop a skill to support that knowledge, because some of the habits that we implement in our lives that we are not used to, it takes time to develop the skill to get the habit right, and some of them don't demand a lot of skill. If you maybe think about your own health and you would like to stop smoking, there's not a lot of skill attached to that. But it will help you, for instance, in that example, to get more knowledge as to how you can kick the habit of smoking, and then just start to implement it by applying the skill. And then the third element that is important for us to change habits is actually motivation, or your attitude. So when knowledge and skill and attitude or motivation comes together, there forms a habit. And all our habits are a combination of knowledge, skill, and motivation. And if you think about habits, that you have good habits, great habits, habits that improves your health, or habits of reading that improves the use of your brain and intelligence, or habits of praying that improves your spiritual atmosphere, your spirit, then you know that there's a lot of knowledge to be gained. Sometimes there's a lot of skill involved, and sometimes you need to push and drive and be motivated to implement it. Because sometimes it's even the habits that we're used to, and even the habits that we cultivate day to day, sometimes we're just not in the mood for them. And that's where the motivation comes in, that we can apply the habit even though we might not be in the emotional state to enjoy and want to apply the habit. Now, let's talk a little bit about change. Change for me is very important, that we understand that changing of anything, whether it be a person or whether it be a situation that needs to change, and the most simplistic definition of change for me is the moving into or moving away from identity. So when you change, when I change, I'm either moving into becoming more of who I should be, or I'm moving away of who I should actually be. It's very important that we understand that that is actually the momentum, and that is actually the way in which change happens, is that we're moving into becoming more of who we are and should be, according to who God created us to be, or we're moving away from that. It's very important that we understand that whatever change you and I engage with, be it that we move closer and more into who we are actually born to be. Now, when we think about identity, the person that you are or the person that I am, I would say identity can be defined as the true nature of a thing or a person. One can drop the word true, but I've just placed it there to accentuate how important it is to understand identity when you think this is what it is. That is identity. When you take coffee, coffee is what it is. When you take an apple tree, apple tree or any other kind of tree you can take, that apple tree will stay true to its nature by bringing forth apples. That's what it will produce. And you can take a person, if you are who you are, and you're already living in the fullness of that, then you are true to your identity. There is no plan B for your life. There's no contingency plan that if you don't make it, then, God has got another plan for this life called you. You are it. And it's very important that you live in the fullness of that. Now, I divide identity into two things. The one is our being, to be, and the other one is our doing, or to do. Now, keep in mind that these two things work synergistically together all the time. The one goes with the other. Who I am will produce what I can do. That's always how it happens. Now, I've seen, and this is maybe just something that we need to consider and be very aware of, because it makes a lot of sense, that it is good for us if we can understand how important our beingness is, and that our doing should flow from our beingness and not the other way around. I shouldn't be someone because I'm a doctor, or I'm a lawyer, or I'm a businessman, or I'm an entrepreneur. Being an entrepreneur, the outflow of that will be that you do whatever an entrepreneur does. Start a business, start a new venture, get some venture capital from an investor and start a business that you would drive until it's successful, until it makes money, until there's a return on investment for your investors. That is what you would do. But first and foremost, you should understand what it means to be an entrepreneur or a businessman on two levels. Obviously, the one is your competence, and that is to express what you are good at. And in the case of being an entrepreneur and entrepreneurially minded, it means that you can do business and you can do it well. But on the being level, on the character level, the other level, it means that you have a certain set of ethics and you live by values like integrity and honesty and compassion and empathy. So it's very important that in our beingness we understand that who we are is very important, and there will be a natural outflow from who we are in our doing. It will translate in our doing. And it's very good and very important. I think it's powerful when you and I define ourselves first and foremost according to our beingness, and then secondly just see our doing, which is very important, but see it as a kind of an outflow, an expression, a manifestation of who we really are. In my practice as a life coach and an executive coach, I often meet people that has got it sort of the other way around. They want to impress by telling us what they do and what they can achieve and what they can perform with and how they can accomplish certain things. And then in the quietness of my heart, I always think, I wish that I can move you into understanding your beingness, your essence, that part of you that was designed by God. Even God himself, when he was questioned about his identity, he came up with this answer, I am. Now that is a kind of a very good and a very thorough understanding of our beingness. It's my I am. In layman's terms, we talk about my why, my purpose. So your beingness is very important. It's very important for you and I to define that. And obviously when we look at our doing, things that we're good with, the potential that lives in us on our bodily physiological level, the potential that lives in us on our soul level, our intelligence, our emotional intelligence, our aptitudes, our interests, on that soul level, the psychological level, and even on the spiritual level, the things that we can do. Those things always point back to us in terms of who we are. So it's very important to, first and foremost, I believe, to define your beingness, your why. And that, as I said, usually translate into your doing. Now, I would like just to go a little bit deeper into your beingness and my beingness. And our beingness is fundamentally defined by our relations and our relationships. Now, what do I mean by making this distinction between relation and relationships? Are the two not the same? No, they're not really. Relations refer to who you belong to. Or it can answer that question. Who do you belong to? In what family do you belong to? To what family do you belong? To what group of people at work do you belong? And then for some of us who are Christians, to whom on that level do you and I belong to? Because that will give a very strong and a very direct and a very fundamental indication as to your identity, your beingness. So that's the first thing that we need to clarify for ourselves. Who do you belong to? Who do you belong to? And I'm talking maybe in natural terms, the family, the work team, the business that you belong to, but also on a spiritual level. Who do you really belong to? It's good to clarify that. It's good to get yourself perspective and clarity on who you belong to. And the second one that is important is with whom are the people that you are in relationship with. Now, you might say, yeah, but the two are the same. The two are not really the same. Let's just take your birth, because our relation, the first one, who you belong to, that I'm talking about, is by birth. Most of the times, about 80% of the time, it's who do you belong. Your parents, your mother and father, you belong to them. You belong to that family. You're part of that family. But you might have a bad relationship with your dad or your mum. So the relationship is not a guarantee as to your relation. So if you belong to your mother and father, which you do, it doesn't mean necessarily that you've got great relationship with them. But if you can balance the two, and those that you belong to, you can have great relationships with, that will define you very clearly as to who you really are. But the first and foremost thing is that you should understand who you are. It's very important that we answer that question, who am I? And we can, as I say, look at who do we belong to? If you belong to God, what a great definition of who you are. Son of God, daughter of God. If you belong to your wife, this family that you belong to, what a great definition that you can have and embrace for yourself as a husband. Or you belong to your husband, you're a wife. Those roles might sound kind of not that important for some of us in terms of our identity, but let me tell you, it's very important. that you define and understand and embrace, love the fact that you relate and are related to God, to your husband, to your wife, to your children. It's not something we can switch on and off and something we can easily discard and say, it's more important for me to keep busy with work and build my business than build relationship with my wife or my husband or my kids or with God or with my good friends or my colleagues. Relationship is equally important. Let me tell you, we can only live in a relationship. We are social beings, and our life really blossoms when we understand and appreciate the relationships in which we stand and live, because it's in those relationships that we are truly defined in terms of who we are. Now, there's a very beautiful saying. It's actually not Mark Twain that said it, although most people will quote him as being the source of this saying. It's actually a guy with a surname of Barclay that said the two most important days in your life are the day you are born and the day you find out why. Isn't it great to really understand that how beautiful it is that your life has sprung into motion, has begun. There's a source for you. You come from somewhere. You're born out of your mother and father, but there is even a greater mind, God himself, behind the design of who you are. He is the one that created you in his image. So it's very, very powerful to understand that the day you were born is the day that you came to earth to contribute what only you can contribute in a very special and unique way. You can give us what only you have to give. There's no one like you. Not in the near 8 billion on the planet is there anyone exactly like you. So when you were born, it's a great day. And then secondly, as we are speaking about it, and maybe hopefully your mind is going to places where you want to understand your why, where you want to try to define your identity, where you want to give substance to your own understanding about why you are here. What is your purpose and what is your potential? Because the two, as I've said, your beingness, your purpose, and your potential or your doing always goes hand in hand. And the potential that lives in you is exactly the potential that you need to live your purpose, to live your why. So I really do believe that in living this life, it is for us, it is for me, it's for you, very important to define your why, to give substance in words or a statement. I usually lead people in my coaching practice to eventually write what I call a personal vision statement or a personal purpose statement. And in that statement, you get quite a clear picture. It's like a mirror that you look into to see yourself. And it's very important to see yourself. So what I would like to leave you with is a deep understanding that it's important for you and I to seize the day. It seems to be troubled days in which we live, even though that may be the case for many people, because it's not easy in the time that we live, that we can just wholeheartedly and abundantly seize the day. But I would like to encourage you to seize the day, carpe diem, to take and grab hold of the day, grab hold of the moment, grab hold of where you are now. Now is the only time in which we can really live and really become what we are born to be. And when this now is gone, there will be another now for most of us, but that now is gone. And there's a new now, and a new now, and a new now. We're constantly living in a kind of a eternal now. And you and I can make decisions to seize the day, to make the most of what this life has to offer us. And I believe, and I would like to encourage you, that as long as you've got breath in your lungs, as long as you've got oxygen in your body, your heart is pumping, your mind is working, seize the moment, seize the day. Your life is here to make a significant difference. It doesn't feel like that every day, all day long. I know life happens. Difficult stuff comes our way, and it might throw us, it might unsettle us, but I would like to encourage you to seize the day, to take this life by its ears and to grab hold of it and say, listen, I'm going to live this life. I've been given this one shot. Like the wise man said once, nobody gets out of this life alive. You and I will not make it alive out of this life. And since we have the time now to make a difference, we can choose to make that difference. And for some of us, like I say, there might be many hurdles, many difficult stuff that we need to deal with. And maybe it's good to keep in mind that the one that has created you is the one that will give you all the strength that you need to live this life and to make it meaningful. I would like to conclude our little talk today with a great poem that I picked up. It was written by a young girl, a student, in the 1960s. And she wrote this poem in honor of her boyfriend. She wanted to express to her boyfriend how much she loves him and how much she wanted to make up, to him, and what she wanted to do for him and things that he has done for her. So the poem is called Things You Didn't Do. Let me read it to you. Remember the day I borrowed your brand new car and I dented it. I thought you'd kill me, but you didn't. And remember the time I dragged you to the beach and you said it would rain, and it did. I thought you'd say, I told you so, but you didn't. And remember the time I forgot to tell you the dance was formal and you showed up in jeans. I thought you dropped me, but you didn't. Do you remember the time I flirted with all the guys to make you jealous, and you were jealous? I thought you'd leave me, but you didn't. Do you remember the time I spilled strawberry pie all over your car rug? I thought you'd eat me, but you didn't. Yes, there were lots of things you didn't do, but you put up with me. You loved me, and you protected me. There were lots of things I wanted to make up to you when you returned from Vietnam, but you didn't. Don't let that be a testimony of your life, that things that you and I can do now to live a great life, that we leave it and leave it and leave it and never get round doing it, or that potential that lives in you, that you have all the strength and the power and the opportunity to release now. Don't let it rest. Release it. Don't enrich the cemetery one day with your potential. Make a decision now to die empty one day.